Hello everybody, welcome to Toyah Day! It's Toyah at Home this Saturday. Now, Robert and I want to launch a new idea for our Sunday out of lockdown lunches. And that is, we want your questions that we can answer as your agony aunts. Bearing in mind,
we are qualified to answer none of them.
we are not qualified to answer them at all. And the reason we're telling you this is you can guess what the style of the answers are going to be. So if you get those into my Facebook and perhaps some to Robert's Facebook, we are going to start doing that, not this Sunday, but the Sunday following. We will be doing Toyah and Robert's agony section. So that is something to sow the seed with you guys. And this is very exciting for us because, as you probably guessed, we're slightly absurd. Thank you, Robert. So, my first song this Saturday, look at that, I'm going to reverse. God, keep waving, keep waving. He's just so cute. I sleep with the guitarist in the band. So, my first song this Saturday is a song off the Changeling. It's the single off the Changeling and it's called Brave New World. Now, Steve Lillywhite produced the Changeling. We recorded it at the Roundhouse in Chalk Farm in 1982. It was the album that followed Anthem, so it really had quite a history to follow. And I found making the Changeling was a huge step into the adult world for me, I suppose. We really wanted to work with Steve Lillywhite because he'd worked with Peter Gabriel's on his brilliant solo albums, which we absolutely adored. And the whole of the Toyah band would play these albums as we drove over Europe. So Steve Lillywhite was our first choice as producer on the Changeling. Another really beautiful thing about the Changeling is it reunited me with my lifelong friend Simon Darlow, who's now my co-writer. So there's lots and lots of happy memories there. But I remember this as a tough album to make. There was so many kind of changes going on in attitude and relationships and stuff like that. It was just one of those albums that was written at an unsettling time. But I think this song, over the last 40 years, for me, has gained a huge place in my heart. I think it's absolutely stunning. I think it's produced beautifully. And one can very easily and honestly say that Joel Bogan's guitar line in this song was copied by U2. And I'd say that not as pointing the finger, but that style, which I first heard Joel do, definitely appeared in later albums with other bands. And I think I have to point that out because culturally, the Toyah and everyone that's worked with me, I don't think have really had the credit they deserve. And that is now coming forward and people are being very, very generous and admitting that we influence people. And I'm hugely grateful for that. So this is the beautiful Brave New World produced by Steve Lillywhite off the Changeling. everybody, thank you so much for your questions this week. They are getting more and more complex and deep, and I can't wait to answer them for you. Now, I mentioned last week I was going to have an antibody test for COVID. Well, both Robert and I had tests this week, and we are both negative. We have no antibodies for COVID. And I was surprised by that. And the nurse said to me, am I disappointed? And I don't know whether to be disappointed or not, because I had such a bad illness on the 1st of November. I was unconscious for about 5 hours. And I do pick up these kind of viruses very, very easily, but I have not had COVID. And Robert, unsurprisingly, hasn't had it either, because he has a more protected life than me. So I suppose on one side of the spectrum there is relief there. Robert still has to live a life in lockdown because he's 74, but I'm starting to go out in the world. I've got a movie in 2 weeks. I start a TV in 3 weeks, so it's getting very, very busy. But I think I will always be wearing a mask, obviously, and washing my hands, and being very, very careful about preparing my own food, and probably take my own food with me onto film sets and stuff like that. And certainly I'll be taking antibacterial wipes everywhere with me. So I just wanted to share that with you. So we've got Alvin Effingham. He says, it's 1980, Toyah. You've woken up in Mayhem, which was my home as well as an art studio where a lot of bands came to rehearse, and Steve Strange had a lot of parties. So 1980, you've woken up in Mayhem. You get out of your coffin bed, because I slept in a coffin, not for that long, and I'll answer that why in a minute. And you ask Toyah of 2020 a question. What would you ask her? So Toyah 1980 would ask Toyah 2020, can you warn me of anything that I need to know in advance? And that would be the knowledge of 2008, the financial crash, and of any viruses that would affect the whole world economy, the whole world health, and the whole world organizational structure. Because I was writing about things like that on Blue Meaning, so it would have been quite a relevant and very realistic question for me to have asked myself. What would Toyah 2020 have asked of Toyah 1980? This is confusing. This is really confusing. I think I'd have asked the Toyah of them, are you willing to be able to believe in the future, and that everything that you've worked for will count for something? Because I think I have never had faith in the future, and hindsight is a beautiful thing. And I would probably kind of give a wink and a nod to Toyah of 1980 and say, just trust the journey, go on it, enjoy it, and don't worry about it. Would we both get on? Alvin asks. I think we would. I think I would have said to Toyah of 1980, just turn it down a notch, just be yourself. You don't have to play at the volume 11 all the time. Just be yourself. That's all that you need. So thank you for that question. Mike Murray, if you could go back to the early 80s, is there anything you would do differently? Actually, I think that's a great question, Mike. I think I would have trusted my natural femininity a bit more. I always saw it as a hurdle. I always felt that femininity was a bit of a trap back then, that if you were too feminine, you were seen, how can I put this, as someone that men governed. And what I mean by that is when you look at The Sun, the newspaper The Sun back then, that always had topless women and always featured very beautiful looking women. And I fought against that big time, firstly because I didn't fit that mould, but secondly I felt it was a bit of a trap and it was just setting you up for ageist comments. So I would probably go back and say, trust your femininity, go with your femininity, because it's still going to be original. And I would have written every idea I had in the moment down, because back then when you're young you think, great ideas, they're flowing today, I'll do it tomorrow. I procrastinated too much, so I think I would have written every idea down and developed it there and then on the spot. Karen Butlin, you say, if you hadn't made it as a singer-actress, what job would you like to have done instead? without a shadow of a doubt, a sculptress. I absolutely adore art and sculpting, and I love the therapy of my hands creating something and just going into a meditative state. I'm a huge fan of Barbara Hepworth. I was a friend and a big fan of Elizabeth Frink. Their work has remained absolutely stunning and hugely influential in art today still. So that's what I would have done. I think also I would have quite liked to have been a pathologist. I'm not a queasy person, and I find the human body and the story it tells quite remarkable. So I've often thought that I would like to do that. I might be growing out of it a bit now, but there you go. Robin Critchard, you ask, what is top of my bucket list right now? I would like to be singing live in front of all of you as quickly as possible. That is definitely number one on my bucket list. I think number two, I have 7 songs ready for Toyah, Toyah Solo, the next album, which I would like to be out around April of next year. Its working title is called Outside of Culture. So that's number 2 and number 1 on my bucket list. And as for other things, probably definitely a sense of normality. I don't get time for holidays, and I don't really miss the idea of holidays. I'm very wedded to my work. I would like Robert to be able to go out and be safe, and so I include that in a bucket list. But I think everything for me is to do with creativity, and there's some very silly little kind of story ideas I've done for children. I say they're silly, I think adults will like them more. I'd like to get those kind of sorted and out into the world as well. So in a way, this situation and this kind of lockdown has helped me be super creative. I mean, for instance, this week, in the last couple of days, I've written 4 lyrics, sent 4 demos out, and they are really, really absolutely excellent. And that is, for me, super creative. I did those 4 lyrics all in one day. And I think now I'm just revving up. You can feel that the outside world is getting energetic, and I'm picking up on that, and it's revving up my creativity. So I've got quite a lot going on already, even though the drive-ins are not allowed to go ahead because of the worry about COVID. I've got a movie coming up, and I started TV, and I just feel very energized from this 3-month kind of hiatus in everything that I do. So my bucket list is just to get on with it. Now, we've got some quadrophenia questions grouped together here, and they're really good fun. George Stevens says, what would Monkey have got up to in the last 40 years? Well, this is a conversation that I had a lot last November when I was filming To Be Someone with the majority of the quadrophenia cast, even though the film we were on, To Be Someone, is completely severed from the story of quadrophenia. But we were all talking about what would our characters have been up to. And we all came to the conclusion that Steph, Leslie Ash's character, would probably be a lawyer and on the straight and narrow and very, very wealthy. Monkey would definitely, I think, have run a brothel and been a drug runner and a drug dealer. I mean, she was just going to get up to no good. She was going to be a very successful gangster. And no doubt Steph, Leslie Ash's character, would have been her lawyer or something like that. So we decided that Monkey was going to be the one that caused the most trouble. So I think Monkey in the last 40 years was drug dealer, a madam, drug runner, probably the person that organised the break-in at Hatton Gardens in London and took, what was it, 24 million worth of jewellery. I mean, you know, she was one of those. She was a gang leader in the making. So Steve Sally, what is your best memory of filming Quadrophenia? I suppose doing the riot scenes in Brighton on an August bank holiday around, I think it was 79, we did that. And the just sheer exhilaration of that many people taking part in shooting scenes. There was thousands of us. And it was very, very exciting. And we knew at that point we were part of something everyone wanted to see. And I think because the mod and the reggae movement was so strong then, naturally with music from The Beat, Selector, and many, many more, Funboy three, we knew that this film had great interest, and that made it a very memorable occasion. So thank you for that question. Now, we've got memories here, which Craig Astley has very cleverly grouped together. Seri Williams, Dance was a song that brought my 14-year-old self to life. Well, thank you for that, Kerry. And you say, it sends chills down my spine. What song from your youth ignited passion in your soul? Cosmic Dancer, Mark Bolan. Wow, and I actually sat 20 feet from him at the Birmingham Odeon. I was on the front row when he sat on the stage cross-legged and performed that song. And then a couple of years later, David Bowie saw him as Ziggy Stardust in Coventry, and it was when he performed Rock and Roll Suicide. I don't think I've ever seen him perform Lady Grinning Soul live, which is one of my all-time favourite songs, because that's a really hard song to sing. It's hard for me to sing, and so imagine what it's like for him. The register is so high. I really still get a huge kick out of Rolling Stones' Jimi Hendrix, but I saw Iron Maiden when I was about 12 years old, and I'm still eternally in love with Iron Man and Paranoia, or Paranoid. They're so powerful, and they're so perfect, and they're so direct. They can still fire me up energetically. And again, in the same year when I was 12, I saw Hawkwind. I snuck into a venue, and Silver Machine. Just absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning. So those are my go-to songs when I want to dance around the house. So thank you very, very much for that, Kerry. Wonderful question. Morgan Nelson asked, what is my favourite single artwork? This is easy to answer, but it's slightly complex. My favouriteest is Thunder in the Mountains, where Richard Shara did my makeup, and he was and is an iconic makeup artist, and he created the crown makeup and the beautiful subtlety on my face, and I believe he did Steve Strange's makeup for Fade to Grey. So very, very brilliant man with a very fine eye for detail, especially on the face. John Swinnell was the photographer, who is an iconic supermodel photographer and dear friend of mine. And the wonderful Robert Labetta did my hair. And back then, hair pieces were made of real hair. Synthetic hair was either solid plastic. You just didn't get good quality synthetic hair. So Robert used real hair. He had to bleach it, dye it. He then had to use umpteen tins of hairspray to set each piece into those solid fans that went out at the back. And I just felt I became a human peacock for the cover of Thunder in the Mountains. It was a very, very satisfying session, and I felt that I'd moved forward as an artist. And then after that, I'd say I definitely love the cover of Brave New World with the face painting. Again, very detailed. Caroline Cohen did the face painting, and she is an actual watercolor artist, so that's how she did my face. And the hair, which was just beautiful, expressive. Some people called it a pineapple, but I actually think it was just great hair. It didn't need to be called a pineapple. So I absolutely adore that artwork, and both those sessions felt incredibly fulfilling. They felt perfect to do. Phil Marriott, so good to hear from you. You sent a question in, and thank you for all your support in the past. You have asked, have I got any memories of the ITV Playhouse drama Little Girls Don't? This is a really great question, Phil, because I think about this so often because my memories are really vague about this, and they shouldn't be. It was directed by Mike Newell just before he went on to do 4 Weddings and a Funeral. I mean, fabulous, fabulous director, starring Robert Glenister. We've got Rosalind Landau just before she went off to start Cat's Eyes with Leslie Ash, Anna Massey, Dame Anna Massey, Philip Neville's, and there's myself. There's a really wonderful, wonderful cast. So Little Girls Don't, I seem to remember it was about 2 girls. One was me, one was Rosalind, who were really kind of becoming lawbreakers, and it's about their journey of how one really went the wrong way and the other went the right way. And I was playing the girl that went the wrong way. And I remember we did a lot of shooting on the streets of London, particularly Notting Hill, where we would have to dart in and out of cars, which we did for real. You didn't have stunt drivers or anything like that. So we just would be running down the street in and out of the traffic. And back then, no one could stop you. If we had a license to film, you could do whatever you want to a certain degree. And the no health and safety again, so it was fine. And then we did a lot of filming in Waterloo, Cardboard City, because I think my character became homeless. And that's all I can remember. And I find that extraordinary. And I imagine that my memories are so vague about that because the music was seriously taking off at the time I was making this. And I remember when we were shooting in Waterloo that I had to go off to I think either the Hayward Gallery or the British Film Institute to go and give a talk about one of Derek's films. So everything, my work was just layered on top of the others. So I would have been doing about 4 different jobs a day then, as well as acting in Little Girls Don't, which might account for the fact that my memory is so vague on that one. If anyone has a copy of this out there, it would be really great to see it. It'd be also really interesting to see if it's completely disappeared, which can happen. We know that the BBC at some point lost a lot of past work because people just thought they'd never need those archives again. So that might have happened with this one. Now, Kevin Wardle. Hello, Kevin. How are you? You are loving the lockdown sessions. Well, thank you. So am I. Do I have any special memories of I Explode? Well, firstly, Kevin, I Explode is the song we're going to leave you with today. It's a fabulous version with the Toyah Band from Islington Academy. And I just love this version of it. This song is so perfect for the Toyah Band. I loved writing it. It was at a time when I was doing Trafford Tansy at the Mermaid Theatre with a lead role as an actress. And in the daytime, Simon Darlow and Joel Bogan would come to the house. I think Simon Darlow was living at my house. And we'd demo all the songs for Love is the Law. And I Explode was one of these wonderful, repetitious riffs, both on keyboard and both on guitar. And I really enjoyed working with both Simon Darlow and Joel on this. It was one of my happiest albums ever. Anthem was a very happy album to make. Changeling was just tough, and that was to do with the place we were in our careers. But Love is the Law felt really great from beginning to end. The demoing, the actual recording, the socialising, it was a really lovely, lovely album to be on. And I Explode is off Love is the Law. So do I have any memories of it? This is one of those songs like IER where I go to a very different place when I sing it. Many people say I become possessed. And I would say that in the style of Sufism, I just go into a deep meditative state. And part of that is because of the breathing and also how I have to use the notation in my throat. It is like running a marathon doing this one. But I absolutely love this song. It's a song of such simplicity, yet it says so much. And it was originally based on the idea that Aleister Crowley was so powerful as a satanic person that he managed to explode and disappear. But I'm not a supporter of Crowley, but I'm fascinated by him. But really, I Explode is about intense emotions that destroy the essence of who you are. And that is what this song is about, and I absolutely adore it. Now, everyone, thank you for your questions. They've been brilliant. As I mentioned at the beginning, Robert and I are intending to start a very silly section called Toyah and Robert's Agony Moments, where we want to give you ridiculous answers to hopefully ridiculous questions. We're not qualified to give you serious answers, but we want to have fun and we want to make you laugh. So send those over. Keep sending questions for Toyah at Home on Saturday, which you've been brilliant at. And thank you so much. This is the Toyah Band, I Explode, at the O2 Islington. Lots of love. Shine like stars, everybody. See you next week. Bye. I explode.